At exactly 6 seconds into the live hearing, Jim Jordan leaned back, smirked, and dropped the line like aslap. "Don't try to teach me the Constitution, girl." Jasmine Crockett didn't flinch. She reached into her bag and pulled out a black USB that would set the entire room on fire live on national TV. What was inside that drive that made one of the most powerful men in Congress beg to cut the cameras? The hearing room didn't just look official. It looked staged like a courtroom built for TV and blood sport. Flags stood stiff like soldiers. Nameplates gleamed too perfectly under the lights, polished like trophies that no one earned. The air wasn't just tense, it was vacuum-sealed. Cameras blinked red like sniper dots from every wall. CNN, Fox, MSNBC, all locked in. From the outside, it was just another congressional hearing, but anyone with a pulse could feel it. Something bigger was about to blow. Jim Jordan knew it too. He leaned back in his chair like he owned the room, grinning sideways as if he'd already delivered the knockout. His tie was crooked in that signature way. Casual rebellion, camera ready. He muttered something to the aide on his right, who chuckled the way frat boys do when they're up to no good. To them, this wasn't a hearing. This was hunting season, and Jasmine Crockett had just walked into the crosshairs. But she didn't flinch. She didn't strut. She didn't wave. Jasmine Crockett moved like a shadow with purpose. Quiet, sharp, and completely unreadable. Her navy suit fit like armor. No jewelry, no fanfare, just a folder tucked under her arm, black and worn at the edges like it had seen war. She walked past Jordan without even glancing at him, and that was the first crack in his smirk. The CNN producer in the press box sat up straighter. "She's here," she whispered, nudging her camera guy. "Start rolling everything." Jasmine reached her seat at the far end of the dis. She didn't look around for approval. She just opened her folder, slowly, carefully, like someone unshathing a blade. Jordan's eyes followed her fingers. He smirked again, nervous this time, though he didn't know why. Across the room, someone scoffed under their breath. She brought a folder, cute. They didn't know that inside that folder was a weapon, and Jasmine was about to use it. The chairman banged the gavel. "This hearing is now in session." Murmurs dropped into silence. The air got heavier. It wasn't just tension. It was gravity shifting. Jordan adjusted his seat. That same old confidence, cocky, smug, untouchable. He thought he was here to dominate. He thought Jasmine was just another headline to outtalk another. Liberal voice to roll his eyes at until America tuned out. But then she tapped her folder once, twice, pause, then once more. It sounded like nothing to most. But to her aide, standing near the back curtain, it was the signal. He pressed a button on his phone. No one noticed. But in the corner of the room, one of the media screens flickered. Just a second, barely visible, like a gun being cocked behind the curtain. In the CNN truck outside, a red light went live. USB trigger armed, remote playback ready, and Jasmine hadn't even said a word. To the outside world, this was just another political hearing. But inside that room, something had been lit. What was she carrying? And why did it feel like the room was about to explode? The gavel cracked once more. The chair recognizes Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Texas. The words fell flat routine, but the room wasn't routine anymore. Jasmine straightened, her hands calmly resting atop the black folder. Her voice when it came was measured low, firm, no frills, like someone reading a verdict, not making a case. She began, "This isn't just about ethics violations on paper. This is about power being sold, policy being shaped behind closed doors, and certain members of this committee receiving campaign dollars from the very corporations we're supposed to be holding accountable." The room shifted, subtle, but real. Chairs stiffened, eyes narrowed, and one laugh cut through it all, sharp, dismissive. "Jim Jordan, here we go," he muttered loud enough for Hismic to catch. "The conspiracy hour." He leaned forward, smirk glued to his face like a mask melting under lights. Let me guess. Dark money, shady donors, and somehow it all leads back to me. Jasmine didn't blink. Congressman, I haven't named anyone yet. If you feel implicated, that's your own echo. A ripple moved through the gallery. One of the reporters coughed, to hide a chuckle. Jordan rolled his eyes and leaned back, hands behind his head like a man watching a bad movie. Behind the curtain, Jasmine's aide tapped a second notification. Screen lock disabled. Playback cue armed. He whispered to another staffer. If he cuts her off one more time, we go to Plan B. Meanwhile, on the floor, Jasmine continued laying the groundwork. She presented a printed timeline donations made then. Votes cast, names redacted for now. But the pattern was clear. Legislation died when the money moved. Regulations dissolved when checks cleared. Jordan interrupted again. You do know this isn't law school, right? You don't get points for PowerPoints. Another chuckle from his side of the aisle. His face gleamed with the thrill of disruption. To him, this wasn't truth. Finding it was theater, and he thought he had the best lines, but he didn't see what was happening behind the curtain. Jasmine's team was already moving. A thumb drive mirrored on a secure channel. A second screen blinked awake at the press table. A young CNN tech mouthed to her boss. Is this live? He nodded unsure, but Jasmine had planned every frame. Back in the room, she paused. Not because she was shaken, but because she was timing something. She looked directly at Jordan. Her eyes didn't flash. They burned steady. You keep talking over me like your voice matters more. But I'm not here to raise mine. I'm here to raise the truth. Somewhere in the silence that followed, a producer whispered, That's the line. Flashback 2 nights earlier. Jasmine sat alone. In her apartment, documents spread like battle plans, donor lists, voting records, flight logs. One photo pinned beside her laptop, her mother outside a polling station in the 60s, holding a sign that read, Let us in. Jasmine didn't inherit rage. She inherited resolve. She cross-checked names at 2:41 a.m., circled 2, that showed upon both Jordan's donor disclosures and a lobbying firm linked to a deregulation bill. She marked it with red ink. Leverage point, she said out loud. That moment wasn't about revenge. It was about the cost of silence and who keeps paying it. Now back in the hearing, she closed her folder gently, the calm before the drop. How many more times would she let him interrupt before? She pulled the pin. Jasmine had just finished laying out her third connection, one that tied a defense contractor's sudden $250,000 donation to a vote Jordan cast only 72 hours later when it happened. Jordan shifted in his chair with exaggerated irritation, rolled, his eyes toward the chairman, and raised one finger like he was hailing a waiter. Point of order, he said, voice coded in faux courtesy. I think we've heard enough of this speculation. Can we move on? The chairman hesitated, cameras tilted, eyes darted. For a moment, the entire chamber teetered between protocol and politics. But before the gavel could fall, Jasmine leaned slightly forward. Her tone was crisp, but calm, not raised. Mr. Chairman, I asked respectfully that I be allowed to finish my statement without disruption. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It vibrated. You could feel the shift like a pressure drop before. A tornado touches ground. Jordan exhaled through his nose, looked away from her, and mumbled something under his breath. Something low and laced with contempt. Then louder this time, clear enough for every microphone to catch, he dropped it. Don't try to teach me the Constitution, girl. I was in Congress while you were still doing student protests. There it was. The line that would be replayed 1,000,000 times in the next 24 hours. The one that detonated like a grenade wrapped in arrogance. It wasn't just the word girl. It was the smirk behind it, the weight of dismissal, the centuries packed into that one sentence, the assumption that age outranked knowledge, that whiteness outweighed expertise. That power got to rewrite respect. The room stopped breathing. Someone in the back gasped. Our reporter's pen slipped to the floor and hit the marble with a sound that echoed louder than it should have. One congressman's jaw went slack. Another clenched, his fist beneath the table. But Jasmine didn't blink. She didn't flinch, didn't huff, didn't snap back. Instead, she stared straight ahead like she was watching a match light its own fuse. Her fingers moved slowly, collected the pages she'd laid out, slid them back into the folder, aligned each edge perfectly like sealing a casket. In the control room upstairs, CNN's lead editor muttered, "Clip it. That's the one." On social media, the moment hit live stream latency. Millions were watching. Hashtags began forming like storm clouds. Jordan, thinking he'd just scored a crowd pleaser, leaned back in his chair again, confident as ever. But this mistake wasn't what he said. It was thinking Jasmine Crockett had come unarmed. She calmly turned her mic off for a beat, then back on. A soft click that felt like a countdown. And for the first time since she entered the room, Jasmine smiled just slightly. Just enough. If someone disrespects your work in public, do you respond with rage or with fireproof evidence? The word girl hung in the air like smoke from a slow-burning fire, sharp, acidic, impossible to ignore. It didn't just land on Jasmine. It slid across the marble desk, crawled up the spines of every woman in the room, and cracked something quiet in the back of the crowd. For a split second, the hearing didn't feel like Washington. It felt like a courtroom in 1963, a boardroom in 1982, a back office where someone thinks no one's listening, except this time, millions were. Across the room, reactions rippled like tremors before an earthquake. One Democratic aide sat frozen, mouth half open. A younger Republican staffer paused, glanced nervously at her phone, then at Jordan. Even members of his own party shifted in their seats, not because they disagreed, but because they knew cameras were rolling and damage was already done. Only Jordan looked smug, as if he just pulled the pin on a rhetorical grenade and was waiting to see how far the shrapnel flew. But Jasmine didn't explode. She didn't storm out, didn't shout. She did the one thing Jordan never expected. She slowed down. One. Bayonne? She gathered her notes, slid each page back into the black folder with surgical precision. The click of the cover echoed like a gavel. Her hands didn't shake. Her expression didn't crack. She was still, controlled, dangerous. Then she looked up, not with fury, but with fire. Her eyes locked on Jordan, and her voice came out low, even, almost too calm. A whisper, but sharp enough to slice through granite. "You have 6 seconds to apologize." Jordan blinked, caught off guard. The smirk faltered. For the first time all morning, he leaned forward, not to dominate, but because he didn't quite hear her. Or maybe he did. Maybe he just couldn't believe she'd said it. The room leaned with him. Every set of eyes, every lens, every live feed, all fixated on Jasmine Crockett. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. No tremble, no tremor. Like someone who already knew the outcome, just waiting for her cue to let it unfold. In the CNN control van outside, the director turned to his team. "Keep it tight on her face." "Don't cut away," a producer whispered. "This is going to be bigger than the Kavanaugh hearing." Inside the chamber, nobody moved, not even the chairman. Jordan opened his mouth, then closed it again. Too late. Jasmine sat back in her chair, her hands folded gently in her lap, but her posture said war. 6 seconds.